When I watched the conversation in the video, it felt as if someone had clenched my heart, squeezing it tight. My mother's voice was the first to cut through, sharp as a thin blade slicing into me. Deanna always acts so noble, but in reality, she's just paying us back for everything we've done for her. I froze. Paying them back? Sure, she helps with the mortgage, but what's there to be proud of? She makes plenty of money. She has no husband, no kids, no one to worry about. Can't she contribute more? My mother continued, letting out a sigh, as if carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. My father didn't argue, he simply nodded slightly, his eyes still fixed on the newspaper in front of him. Meanwhile, Alex, my brother, let out a mocking laugh. She thinks she's the savior of this family. What a joke. She helps a little and expects us to be grateful? I paused the video, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Their words were so cruel. It shattered the naive belief I had always held, that I actually mattered to them. For the past 4 years, I had been covering most of the mortgage payments for the house my family lived in, through an investment company I had established, Crestline Investments. Not because they asked me to, but because I wanted them to have a stable life. They thought they were making payments to a bank, unaware that I had been shouldering almost the entire financial burden every month. I opened my financial spreadsheet, staring at the numbers laid out in front of me. $248,500. That's how much I had poured into keeping the house under their name. And them? They had only contributed $49,000 in 4 years. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. The video and these numbers were undeniable proof. I wasn't their daughter, their sister, or even a real part of the family. To them, I was just a walking ATM, a safety net that allowed them to live recklessly, without ever facing the consequences. A new message popped up on my phone. Uncle Mark. Diana. You need to see this. I opened the attachment. It was a series of screenshots from a group chat titled, Family Finances. A chat I had never been included in. The first message made my stomach drop. Alex. Diana thinks she's the savior of this house, but she's just a rich idiot. I kept reading, each word cutting deeper than the last. Mom, we should find a way to get her to give us more money. She lives alone anyway, she doesn't have anything else to spend it on. I clenched my phone, fury rising in my chest. The people I loved, the ones I had done everything to support, only saw me as a wallet. Dad, Mom, Alex. They had never truly valued me. I had thought they cared because we were family, which was why I had helped them for so long. But now, I saw the truth. I sat motionless in my apartment, the glow of my computer screen casting a cold light on my face. The numbers, the messages, the cruel words from the video echoed in my mind, like a haunting melody playing on a loop. 4 years, $248,500. I had convinced myself that I was helping them out of love. But now, I saw it clearly. The love was only one-sided. I wasn't their daughter, I was a money machine they could drain. And I was done playing that role. I reopened the mortgage agreement I had signed 4 years ago under Crestline Investments. When the housing market crashed, my parents had been on the verge of losing the house. I couldn't stand to see them homeless, so I had gone to Lauren, my financial advisor. You want to help them? Set up a company and buy the house through it. Are you sure? Yes, but leave a small portion for them to pay. I don't want them to feel overwhelmed by the cost. That was the decision I would regret the most. 4 years later, they were living comfortably, thinking the house was secure and they were managing everything on their own, when in reality, I had been keeping the roof over their heads with my money. But now, having seen the truth, I had no reason to continue. I dialed Lauren's number. Diana? Her voice came through after the first ring. What's going on? I was just about to call you. I frowned. Call me? Lauren sighed. I got a call from someone named Alex. He wanted to know about Crestline Investments, whether the company had anything to do with your parents' mortgage. Alex, what was he up to? Had he found some documents? Or was he just trying to figure out how much more he could squeeze out of me? Whatever his reason, I couldn't let him find out the truth. Did you tell him anything? Of course not. I just told him I couldn't disclose client information. Lauren hesitated. But, Diana, what's going on? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I want to stop everything. I won't cover their mortgage anymore. They'll have to handle it themselves. Lauren was silent for a few seconds before speaking. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. I pulled up the contract on my screen. I remember we included a buyout clause, right? If they miss a payment, I can take full ownership? Lauren answered slowly. That's correct. If they default, Crestline can immediately claim the property. There's nothing they can do to fight it. I stared at the screen, a strange feeling washing over me. For 4 years, I had shackled myself to a responsibility no one asked for. I had hoped that by helping them, I would be loved and appreciated. But they had never seen me as family. Now I didn't have to sacrifice for them anymore. I won't warn them, I said, my voice steadier than ever. I'll let them find out on their own when the payment is due. Lauren was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. I guess you finally saw what you needed to see. Yes, and I'm going to let them face the consequences. After hanging up, I scrolled through my unread messages from Mom, from Alex. They were still asking for money, still playing the roles of concerned family members, all while scheming to drain me dry. I had made up my mind. I was going to visit the house one last time, to take a good, hard look at the people who had only ever seen me as a means to an end. I picked up my phone and sent my mother a message in advance. I'll be visiting home tomorrow. The next day, after months of staying away, I returned to the house I once thought was filled with love. Standing in front of my parents' home, I took a deep breath before pressing the doorbell. From the outside, I could see the warm glow of the lights filtering through the windows, hear the laughter and chatter coming from inside. If I didn't know the truth, I might have thought this was a happy family, a place where I belonged, but I had seen their true faces. The door swung open and my mother greeted me with a wide smile, almost unnaturally so. Diana, sweetheart, you're finally here. She pulled me into a tight hug, one that lasted a little too long, as if I were a long-lost loved one returning home. But I knew better. This wasn't affection. This was the opening act of a carefully rehearsed performance. As I stepped inside, I noticed the dining table had already been set with my favorite dishes: grilled steak, mashed potatoes, steamed vegetables, and red wine. A familiar tactic, using good food to soften me up before making their request. My father sat at the head of the table as always, his expression calm but with a hint of tension in his eyes. And Alex, my brother, lounged in his chair, arms crossed over his chest, a smug smile on his face. So, little sister finally decided to show up, Alex said, raising an eyebrow as I pulled out a chair. I thought you were too busy to make time for family. I gave a faint smile, my thoughts lingering on that word, family. Yes, I had come back to see what this family truly was. I always have time for family, I replied. My mother placed a plate of food in front of me, patting my hand gently, as if I were still a child, in need of reassurance. Diana, you know, your father and I are so proud of you. You've done so well in your career. I nodded, waiting. But, she hesitated, glancing quickly at my father before continuing. As you know, times have been a little tough. Your father's real estate business is struggling, and the mortgage payments aren't as easy as they used to be. My father cleared his throat, feigning deep contemplation. We've been thinking a lot, Diana. And we believe that family should help each other in difficult times. I set my wineglass down, looking at them intently. So, what exactly do you want me to do? I asked, feigning innocence. Alex shrugged, as if it were no big deal. Not much, just an extra $2,000 a month. That's barely anything compared to your salary, right? I smiled internally. They had no idea that I had already paid over $248,500 for this house, and still thought I'd continue footing the bill. $2,000, huh? I repeated, pretending to consider. That's right, sweetheart, my mother nodded, her voice sickly sweet. We know you can afford it. You don't need to worry, it's just a little extra help for the family. I looked at them, feeling as though I were observing strangers. These were the same people who, in that video, had said, "She owes us. She thinks she's so great?" I wanted to laugh. I understand. I nodded, picking up my fork and slowly taking a bite of steak. But I need time to think about it. Alex raised an eyebrow. Think about what? You have money. Helping families should be a no-brainer. I shrugged. It's just, I have some financial plans of my own. I need to review everything before making a decision. I saw a flicker of disappointment in my mother's eyes as she exchanged a quick glance with Alex, as if silently communicating something. Then she turned back to me with a warm smile. Of course, sweetheart, family always supports each other. I offered a small smile, sipping my wine. Then I'll give you an answer in 8 days. Alex narrowed his eyes. Why 8 days? I set my glass down and met his gaze. I just need to check a few things with my financial advisor. You understand, right? Being smart with money is just good business sense. My words made Alex falter for a split second before he quickly masked it. The rest of the dinner was filled with small talk, but I barely paid attention. I had already made my decision long ago. As I left, my mother walked me to the door, taking my hands in hers with a look of trust. I know you'll do the right thing. I squeezed her hands lightly, smiling. Yes, Mom, I think so too. Because I knew, in 8 days, they would have to face reality. 3 days later, I received a message from Uncle Mark. Diana, you need to hear this. I know what you're planning to do, but so are they. Attached was an audio file. Sitting in my office, my heart pounded as I pressed play. It was Alex's voice. I found out something about Diana. Mom, what is it? Alex. Last week, through a contact, I did some digging. She manages a company called Crestline Investments. Dad, Crestline, what's that? Alex. It's a well-known financial management company, and guess what? She's the director. Looks like she has a lot of money and doesn't want to help us. A brief silence followed. My mother was the first to break it. So she really has a lot of money. She's been hiding it from us all this time? Her voice was filled with outrage. We have to do something. We can't just let her walk away without taking responsibility for this family. Alex let out a cold chuckle. Don't worry, I have a plan. I swallowed hard, my grip tightening on my phone. I knew they weren't trustworthy, but hearing them talk about me hiding money as if it were some kind of crime sent chills down my spine. They didn't just see me as a financial resource. They believed I owed them and had an obligation to help. I pressed play to listen to the rest of the recording. Dad, what plan? Alex, remember her college tuition? Back then she used money from Dad's company to pay for it. We can bring that up again, put pressure on her to force her into helping. Mom, but she paid it back already. Alex, who cares? We just need to say she never did. No one checks old records anyway. It's been years. And if necessary, through my connections, I can tell her company that she has mental health issues, or might be embezzling company funds. That should scare her. I shot up from my chair, my breath quick and unsteady. They didn't just want my money. They wanted to destroy my career. I had thought they were just opportunists, but now I realized they were much worse. They were willing to lie and manipulate to trap me. I closed the message, forcing myself to stay calm. I needed to think clearly. I couldn't let emotions take over. The most important thing now was to protect myself. I opened my laptop, logged into my company email, and sent a formal notification to the management team. I outlined the situation, detailed the threats my family had made, and attached the recording from Uncle Mark as evidence. They had no idea I held the highest authority in the company. I had to take control before they could act. I had to expose them first. After sending the report to the management team, I called Uncle Mark back. I just finished listening, I said, my voice colder than I expected. He sighed. Are you okay? I'm fine. I paused. Thank you for sending it to me. If you hadn't, I wouldn't have known just how low they were willing to go. What are you going to do next? I glanced at my computer screen. 5 days until the mortgage payment was due. Nothing, I replied. I'll let them keep believing they have control over me. And then, I'll let them face the consequences themselves. I let out a small chuckle. They'll find out soon enough. Leaning back in my chair, I felt a newfound sense of control. Alex thought he was clever, but he had no idea I had already planned everything. They wanted to ruin me? Fine. Because in this game, I held all the power. The final day, the moment of truth. The day had finally arrived. The day they would have to face reality. I woke up earlier than usual, even though I had barely slept the night before. I took a sip of coffee, staring at my phone screen. Just 15 minutes left before the mortgage payment deadline. I didn't have to wait long. 5 a.m. First notification from the bank. I clicked on the email, though I already knew what it would say. The customer's mortgage payment has been declined due to insufficient funds. And just as I expected, 12 minutes later my phone started ringing. The name on the screen. Mom? I let it go to voicemail. Immediately messages flooded in. Mom, Diana, something is wrong. The bank says we missed the mortgage payment. There must be some mistake. Call me back. Alex, are you involved in this? Stop playing games. I sighed and set my phone down. They had no idea what was coming next. 9:30 a.m. Second email from the bank. I opened the new message, scanning the bolded text. Due to non-payment, ownership of the property now legally belongs to Crestline Investments, per the mortgage agreement. I leaned back in my chair, a small smile forming on my lips. I was no longer their silent safety net. I was the rightful owner of the house. And they were just tenants, who didn't even know it yet. 10:15 a.m. Call from Dad. I let it ring for a while before finally answering. Deanna? His voice was hoarse. The bank says we don't own the house anymore. What the hell is going on? I took a slow, deep breath, keeping my voice calm. Nothing is wrong, Dad. I just decided not to cover your mortgage anymore. Silence on the other end. Then, explosion. What? What do you mean? Since when? I smirked. Since today. Crestline Investments? The company that now owns the house? That's my company. And per the contract, the moment you defaulted on the mortgage, ownership transferred to me. A heavy silence filled the line. Then, my mother's voice erupted in the background. What? Surprised? I asked, my tone casual. Guess you never bothered to read the fine print, did you? You can't do this to your own family, my father roared. I laughed softly. Ooh, but I can. And I did. A new reality had settled in. For the first time, I was in control, and they were the ones left powerless. Then my mother screamed over the phone. What? Surprised? I said, my voice still calm. You never actually read the mortgage agreement, did you? You can't do this to your own family, my father shouted. I smirked. Family? Family doesn't secretly go through my files, try to blackmail me, and attempt to ruin my career. Family doesn't call me a rich idiot behind my back. Another silence. This time I could feel their panic on the other end. Alex was the first to break it. Diana, listen, I'm sure we can figure out a solution. There's no need to make this a big deal. I laughed. A solution? I raised an eyebrow. Like the one where you planned to falsely accuse me of embezzling from my own company? Alex's breathing hitched. How did you... Uncle Mark sent me the recording. I cut him off. I know everything. My mother gasped. Diana, you can't do this to us. But, Mom, isn't this exactly what you all planned to do to me? I chuckled softly. You always told me that I should take responsibility for family, but it seems like none of you wanted to take responsibility for yourselves. You have to help us, my mother screamed. We're not leaving this house. I crossed my arms. Then you should check your email from Crestline. You'll find a new lease agreement. If you want to stay, you have 30 days to start paying rent. My mother hissed. You're kicking your own family out? You're ungrateful. I let out a cold laugh. No, Mom. I'm simply treating you the way you've treated me all these years. And then, I hung up. 3 hours later, email from management. I opened the email with the subject line, Internal Investigation Results. Deanna, we have reviewed the allegations made against you. Based on the evidence you provided, we confirm that these claims were entirely false. We have documented Alex Callahan's intentional attempt to spread misinformation within the company. I exhaled, relief washing over me. Their plan had completely backfired. Not only had they lost the house, they lost their chance to destroy my career. I stood up, poured myself a glass of wine, and took a slow sip. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Because I no longer had to take care of them. They thought they could control me. But I had proven them wrong. I was not someone they could manipulate. 30 days passed faster than I expected. Every day I received countless messages, calls, and even emails from my mother, father, and Alex. At first they begged, pleading with me to reconsider. When I didn't respond, their words turned bitter, blaming me for the hardship they were facing. I didn't answer a single message. My mother even tried reaching out through old friends and colleagues. I blocked them all. I was no longer the obedient daughter chasing after their approval. 10 days before the lease deadline, I received a simple message from my father. We can't pay the rent, can you help us? I stared at the message in silence, then turned off my phone. They had 4 years to get their finances in order. 4 years living in a house I paid for. And now they expected me to save them again? No. I had already given them everything I had. It was time for them to take responsibility for their own lives. The day they left. That morning I drove to the house, parking a distance away so I could watch unnoticed. A moving truck was parked in the driveway. Alex and my father were hauling boxes to the curb. My mother stood in the doorway, her eyes red and swollen. They didn't see me, but I saw them clearly. Their faces showed anger, helplessness, and most of all, they had always relied on me as their safety net. Now, they had no one left to fall back on. A strange feeling rose inside me. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad either. I just felt free. They would have to learn how to live without me. They would have to stand on their own. 3 weeks later, a message from Uncle Mark. Deanna, have you seen the news about Alex? I frowned and clicked on the link he sent. Real estate agent's license suspended for unethical practices. I read the article slowly, taking in each word. The real estate company Alex worked for had launched an internal investigation after multiple complaints of dishonest dealings. Turns out, Alex had been manipulating contracts, misrepresenting property values, and exploiting clients for personal gain. And thanks to Uncle Mark's recording, where Alex discussed fabricating accusations against me, the State Real Estate Ethics Board decided to suspend his license indefinitely. I stared at my phone, letting out a deep sigh. Alex always thought he was smarter than me, that he could lie, cheat, and manipulate without consequence. But in the end, he destroyed himself. When the news spread, the relatives came crawling. As soon as Alex's scandal became public, my extended family, the ones who never cared about me before, suddenly started showing up. The first message came from Aunt Laura. Diana, no matter what, they're still your family. You can't just let them struggle like this. Then, a call from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade. Deanna, you know, everyone is really struggling right now. Maybe you've been a little too harsh. I hung up. None of them were there when I needed help. But now, when I had walked away and my family was suffering, they suddenly expected me to fix everything. I blocked all of them. 3 months later, selling the house. I signed the final papers to sell the house. I no longer felt any attachment to it. The walls that once held my childhood now only carried memories of betrayal and manipulation. But instead of keeping the money for myself, I did something more meaningful. I established a fund to help victims of financial abuse within families. People like me, who had been treated as walking ATMs by those who never appreciated them. The money from the house sale became the first contribution to the fund. I know that I cannot change what has happened to me, but I can help others avoid experiencing what I went through. That night, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, looking out over the city. I no longer carried a weight on my shoulders. I no longer had to worry about calls asking for money, or messages filled with guilt and blame. For the first time in years. And I knew that from this moment on, I would never allow anyone to take advantage of me again. Diana's story is a powerful reminder of the value of self-respect and personal boundaries. In life, sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who exploit us the most. Sacrifice is not always met with gratitude, and unconditional help can turn into dependence. Diana learned to put herself above her family's unreasonable expectations, and realize that family ties are not an excuse for being used. Sometimes, the only way to find peace is to walk away from toxic relationships and protect yourself. What do you think about Diana's story? Have you ever experienced family members taking advantage of you like she did? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more real-life stories filled with emotion about family and life.